Well, just as we signed on the air a minute ago, the countdown was held. We are holding at 8 minutes, waiting for a rain shower to hit the Cape. We've been watching it for 1 hour as it's been moving in from western Florida. We can see the rain out behind the vertical assembly building to the west of our position, and it is slowly moving toward us. All of us here at the Cape were almost making bets on how fast it would move through. And sure enough, it hasn't hit here yet. It's just a typical rain shower. We don't think it is dangerous, but there could be some electrical interference in it. And so the count has been held at 8 minutes, and that is the spot at which we stand right now. From this moment on, we will be progressing beyond the 20-hour, 23-minute mark for liftoff. In other words, we were to have lifted off about 5 minutes from right now. That has been delayed at least 8 minutes, which means we're now down past the 20-hour, 30 mark approximately. With me here at Cape Kennedy is our familiar friend and NASA engineer, John Hammersmith. John, are you ready to get wet?
I'm ready to get wet, Rhett. I was wishing I could get up there and push these clouds back.
Yeah, there was the speculation they should go ahead and go early.
I would have liked to have been able to push that button early. I surely would.
But the procedures called for hold. All of this is very carefully planned ahead of time. Everything, there are things going on right now, automatic sequence processors and checkouts, which must be performed, so the hold is necessary.
That's right, Rhett. We cannot go too early. The time that we set for the liftoff is the earliest possible to give us our proper conditions.
Proper countdown and procedures processing.
Well, also at the other end, Rhett, if we leave too soon, we have to make too many adjustments during the flight to compensate for it.
All right, John's going to be standing by with me to give us more information, particularly on the performance of the Saturn V rocket. Here at the launch pad site, we're exactly 5 kilometers back from the Apollo 14 launch.
Planning to resume the countdown several minutes from this time. From the latest advisories from the weather aircraft, it appears that the higher altitude clouds will have cleared the area by our now new planned launch time. We still will be launching through some cloud cover, but the top of these clouds will be 10,000 feet or less. This is the latest forecast we have from our weather advisory via the aircraft. We're at T-minus 8 minutes and 2 seconds and holding, but planning to resume the count in several minutes. This is Kennedy Launch Control.
As I was saying, at this moment, those 3 men are right before us there in the Kitty Hawk on top of that 100-meter tall rocket. And they're very calm, as Al Shepard pointed out, with some jitters or some element of being keyed up. But they're ready, waiting patiently. And at this point, so are the men in launch control, so are the men in mission control. The people doing all the pressured work at this point are the pilots in the sky doing all sorts of measurements of the rain, seeing how high up it goes into the cloud cover. Radar operators taking measurements on the thickness of this particular rain cell and reporting back to the spacecraft meteorology group, and then feeding this to launch directors. And right before us, the men who are on the way to the moon are just sitting calmly and waiting. John, what else did you hear during the other announcement there?
Well, he pretty well recapitulated the situation, Rhett. I might add, by way of a little bit of interpretation, we talk about these things as rain showers, and it sounds as though it's the rain that's concerning us. That's not the case. A little bit of water wouldn't hurt us. It's the electrical activity that's possible. Here it comes.
Launch control.
We have had a change of several minutes on resuming the countdown. The launch team has now been advised by the launch director we will resume the count at 55 minutes past the hour, which is some 7 minutes from this time. We'll be standing by, expecting to resume the count in some 7 minutes from this point. 8 minutes and 2 seconds and holding. This is Kennedy Launch Control.
That means we will have a liftoff at about 3 minutes past the hour, 21 hours GMT.
I was saying, Rhett, that we're really concerned about the electrical activity or the possible electrical activity that's associated with certain types of rain showers. You may not be getting lightning out of a batch of clouds, but flying a vehicle through them may be enough to trigger something, as happened in the case of the Apollo 12 launch, which you may remember.
John, standing by with us in our Washington studio is our associate Norman Guerin, and we've been reporting all of the activity here, primarily the anatomy of a rain shower, since we came on the air at quarter past.
Looks like our turn's coming now, Rat. It looks like a big black cloud heading our way.
So let's call.
It's clear.
Let's call Norman in with us and see if he has anything to add from the Washington studio perspective.
We'll return to Cape Kennedy for the launch of Apollo 14, Rhett Turner and John Hammersmith, but first, a summary of world news.
In Mozambique, at least 20,000 refugees rescued from flood-devastated areas are in refugee camps, and aircraft are working to deliver food and drinking water to other victims. Rescue efforts are hampered by flooded railway lines, blocked roads, and collapsed bridges, although floodwaters are receding. The death toll from the storm is still unknown. The U.S. command in Saigon says B-52 heavy bombers and other aircraft are continuing air operations along the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Laos. The spokesman said American planes also flew combat support missions in Laos for Lao forces and bombed communist supply lines in Cambodia. The current Mideast situation was discussed at cabinet meetings in both Egypt and Israel. Officials in each country have been discussing steps to take if the other resumes shooting after the current ceasefire agreement expires on Friday. Civil defense exercises were again staged in Cairo and several other Egyptian cities to prepare for possible Israeli attack. And Egypt's Foreign Minister Mahmoud Riyad met in Kuwait with its ruler, Sheikh Sabah el-Salem al-Sabah, giving him a message from President Sadat, reportedly outlining Egypt's attitude about the ceasefire. West German Chancellor Willy Brandt and President Gustav Heinemann flew back to Bonn today after visiting West Berlin. Meantime, East German border guards, at last report, were continuing to slow traffic between West Berlin and West Germany for the fifth straight day. Delays of up to 30 hours were reported. United States Senate Assistant Democratic Leader Robert Byrd said he will not support legislation imposing a deadline on U.S. troop withdrawals from Southeast Asia. The West Virginia senator also said he sees no violations of congressional restrictions in the administration's handling of air raids into Cambodia. Democratic Senator Birch Bayh of Indiana said Sunday that if he decides to seek the Democratic presidential nomination in 1972, he will not attempt to undercut other potential Democratic candidates. The New York Times reported Sunday that Senator Edward Kennedy of Massachusetts has ruled himself out as a presidential candidate in 1972. Senator Kennedy was quoted as saying he believes that Senator Edmund Muskie of Maine is virtually certain to receive the Democratic nomination. Representatives of the world's major oil companies and 6 Persian Gulf oil-producing nations resumed negotiations in Tehran after a 2-day recess. During the break, the company negotiators went to London to report on the talks and presumably received new instructions regarding the bargaining over the future price of crude oil. Moscow dispatches say a Soviet appeals court has commuted the death sentence imposed on a Lithuanian convicted of trying to hijack an airliner to Sweden. The sentence against 34-year-old Vytautas Simukaitis was reportedly reduced to a 15-year term in a labor camp. An earth tremor in the southern Yugoslav town of Kisevo cracked the walls of many houses Sunday and topped chimneys. A South African film producer, Howard Connell, says he has offered American boxer Muhammad Ali the leading role in a movie about the Zulu chieftain Shaka, who ruled the nation of African warriors 150 years ago. Mr. Connell said in Johannesburg that Ali, formerly Cassius Clay, expressed interest in doing the movie. The producer said he plans to fly to New York for Ali's world heavyweight title bout with Joe Frazier on March 8th to discuss the offer. Plans for the movie call for filming in South Africa, Malawi, and America. That's the news summary. Les Higby reporting.
This is the Voice of America's worldwide coverage of the launch of Apollo 14. Now back to Cape Kennedy and correspondent Rhett Turner.
We're still waiting for the clock to pick up for a launch about 3 minutes past the hour, so we're still about 10 minutes away from liftoff if that launch picks up according to the latest announcement we have had. This is all contingent upon the rain shower. I feel some rain, John Hammersmith. It's beginning to hit us.
I didn't feel a thing, Rat.
I should just imagine that it went away. Okay, we hope that there will be enough of an open space between rain cells, as the weathermen call it, between that which just passed out to sea, past the Saturn V rocket, and another which appears to be coming up behind us from the west. And the launch officials believe that that's the thing they're going to be working for. Here's launch control.
2 seconds by the clock. Test Supervisor Chuck Henschel has just polled some of the key elements involved in the countdown, requesting their go status to pick up the count in about 1.5 minutes from this time. They all report ready, and we are standing by. Expecting now to resume the count in a little less than 1.5 minutes. This is Kennedy Launch Control.
There was Jack King. We are going to pick up that launch control, countdown in just a moment. And as we talk to you, we're beginning to get a few more drops of that stuff which doesn't exist for launches. At least that stuff we wish didn't exist. It's called rain. And we're going to put up an umbrella and just stand here on the sands with everybody else and get wet and watch and enjoy it. Right?
Yes, I didn't want to get this umbrella out, Rhett, but I had to.
All right. We don't. You heard the last report from Jack King there that they do expect to pick it up, meaning that the small shower coming this way is not expected to be of consequence to delay launch at 3 minutes past the hour. Now, that's still 9 minutes from now, if I am looking at the clock correctly, approximately 9 minutes from now. So we will stay on with our worldwide broadcast from the Voice of America for that liftoff as it occurs.
Rhett, we might make an amateur judgment here on the ground as to the weather conditions. It looks actually quite clear behind these dark clouds that are now right over the launch pad. And that makes me feel rather optimistic.
Launch control.
Resumed our countdown. T-minus 8 minutes and counting on Apollo 14. We're still keeping a close eye on our weather conditions at this time, but Launch Director Walter Caprian has made the determination to resume the count. This should put us with a liftoff at 3 minutes past the hour if all continues to go well. We're now starting the chill down of the engine chambers on the third and second stages of the Saturn V launch vehicle. This is one of the critical elements and has to do with hold times. The chill down has to last a precise period. We feed in extremely cold helium into the engine chambers of both the second stage and third stage to condition them for the very cold liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen that will be flowing into the chamber when they're due to ignite later during the powered portion of the flight. All is still going well as far as launch vehicles, spacecraft, and the 3 astronauts on board. Coming up in the 7-minute mark, 7 minutes and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control.
And that was the word again. We're watching the clock count down, 6:50 now, 6 minutes and 57 seconds and counting. You know, when Al Shepard climbed aboard, the pad commander, a man named Gunther Wendt, who has been with the astronauts since the very beginning, gave Al Shepard, the oldest man ever to go into space at the age of 47, just as a joke, he gave him a cane. Just as a joke. And Al has taken a lot of kidding about his age and being the oldest man to go into space, and we asked him about that in a recorded interview. Al Shepard, you look to be in mighty good shape for this flight. It was almost 10 years ago that you began the American manned space program with your first suborbital flight in Mercury. How do you keep in shape? What do you do?
Well, I primarily jog. Although it's rather distasteful to me. I find that jogging a couple of miles every day that I can is perhaps the best, quickest way to keep me in reasonably good condition. I lift a few weights, not anything real heavy, but
You still do a lot
light
of
weights.
You still do a lot of flying too, don't you? To keep your air.
I don't think flying per se is a conditioning process. I really think that you have to, and now the experts agree that you really have to force the cardiovascular system to operate at a pretty good rate for, 10 to 15 minutes in order to keep generally good condition.
There's been a lot of good-natured teasing, which you responded to, about the fact that now at the age of 47, you will be the oldest astronaut to go into space, a bit older than some of the Russian cosmonauts who were in their mid-40s. You're now 47 years old, and you look good. The doctors say you're good. Tell me about the kidding. Anybody give you a hard time?
Well, I don't really mind about the kidding. I think probably before too long, perhaps another 3 or 4 years, there'll be somebody who goes into space that'll be older than I currently am. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't mind being the first astronaut over 50 in space.
It's a matter of how you are in your head and how you keep your body, huh?
Yeah, guess that's it.
Okay, Al, good luck throughout the flight. This is Rhett Turner in Houston. And now that was recorded in Houston several days ago. Every now and then, a ray of sunlight breaks through this cloud cover as the clouds are dissipating slightly, and it hits that bright white rocket. If you happen to be watching on television, it is a fantastic sight. It's quite moody watching this launch, too, because looking to the east from our vantage point on the sands of Cape Kennedy, we're now looking at the first rain shower to pass on out to sea. Here's launch control. Launch control.